Welcome back to the Snod Pod with John Snodgrass, your mortgage resource where we're talking real estate, mortgages, and beyond. I've got John-Michael Fleming with Spinnaker Renovations out of Cedarburg back for another episode. We're going to talk permits, or should I forego permits when doing a renovation project? So John-Michael, first, welcome back. Thanks for coming back.
Hey, thanks. Always glad to be here. Always good to be here.
So let's talk permits, because I get that a lot, questions, because I help people with refinances sometimes get some money out to do projects, and they'll ask me, hey, do you think I should do a permit for this, bathroom or basement? Do you get that question? And if you do, I guess, how do you tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that comes up in every project that we do. So it becomes like one of those things where, like, I don't ever want to, steer someone away from not getting a permit or getting a permit. It's kind of really, it depends on the project. So I think we should break it down into, two different types of situations. So,
okay.
I like to look at it from the general contractor's perspective, and
okay.
we can do kind of like pros and cons of permits and not permits, and then from the client perspective of having the pros and cons in that regard. So I'll start on my side with the general contracting. I think permits, if there's a con of them, is they slow the process down for sure. So there's instances where I've been on jobs and we're waiting on a permit to get pulled, or say the plumber doesn't pull his permit, and we're waiting on an inspection, and I've got the drywall guys lined up for come in the next week, but he doesn't get his permit in on time, and so then that inspector, you can't have the inspection come out and do everything they need to do and until the permit's pulled, and it's really just
pushes everything back. The drywallers can't go in the day that they're supposed to go in.
Yeah, and that could create 2 more weeks of just no one doing anything because the permit didn't get filed, and then the permit, you got to the office, they're already booked up for a week.
Got it.
So like that can be a process that bogs things down.
Okay.
But the pro side of it is, for a contractor and for myself, it's nice to have someone looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have someone that can say, hey, you need to put some fire blocking up here that I missed, or, this plumbing line needs to go this way, or you need to put some caulk here or something. Most of the time, inspections, I've never like failed an inspection, but there's like little things that sometimes you miss,
Sure.
and it's nice to have someone go through there and give yourself a little double check,
Got it.
But the con on that side too is like, if someone does see something you missed and then you have to redo it,
mm-hmm.
It makes you look bad. So
sure.
It's good to it's good to know that you're getting a permit because you're having that.
Yeah.
So it's
kind of a safety net.
Yeah.
To make double checking your work.
But then like the con, I guess, or the pro to that would be, or knowing, or if I'm saying I'm doing work that doesn't have a permit, then it's all on me. So I have to make sure that if something goes wrong, I can't just say, oh, well, the inspector let it go through, so everything's fine. So if there's not an inspector, then it's all on me. So then, so it almost makes me do better work because I know that I'm the only one that's going to see it. And if something goes wrong down the line, then, it's that responsibility is on me. So as far as like an integrity situation, like I'm not going to be cutting corners because I'm not going to have a permit and stuff like that.
You're almost going above and beyond. It sounds like what you're doing to make sure everything's all good.
Yes, exactly.
So from a client's perspective, what are they weighing pros and cons?
So pros and cons from the client's perspective, I would say, the pros are you get the permit done and the city's on board with it, and everybody, like all your ducks are in a row, and I think you have the confidence of knowing that you're not going to get some backlash in the future.
Yeah.
And then also I think it creates like that safety net that I was talking about on my side. I think it gives them that safety net as well. Like, hey, I'm not just depending on everything that John-Michael is doing. You get a little discount double check coming in from the inspector on that one. So,
but on my side of things, like I feel like I get a lot of people that are just like a large chunk of the time for like a basement, or even for like a project at some point we're gonna get to, is my kids' bathroom.
Right.
It's like stuck in the 80s, man.
Yeah.
It's a sore subject between me and my wife. We'll get to it at some point, but is like, to me, it's like, why would you? There's nothing changing in the bathroom. There's 2 sinks, there's a toilet, and there's a bathtub. Now we might get rid of the bathtub because our kids are older now. Like, to me, I feel like, why would I get a permit for that? Like, nothing's changing.
Yeah, I think
Is that fair?
Yeah, I
assessment?
think that's a super fair assessment. I mean, I do a lot of bathrooms like that aren't permitted. You know, it's easier, it's small. You know, like, you really only need a permit, and I say this with quotation marks.
Yeah,
you know, I'm sure like
probably
inspectors any inspector that watches this is like, oh, this guy, he's just doing work all willy nilly. But you really
leave it up to the customer.
Yeah,
hey,
you leave it up to the customer and stuff like that. But like, if you're not changing the platform of the room, if you're not, you know, if you're taking out a wall and you don't know if it's load bearing or not, you know, and you're just gonna DIY it on a Saturday, you know, you're gonna mess up the integrity of your house, or your roof's gonna collapse or something like that. Like, you want to get like a professional who knows what they're doing. So but yeah, if you're just, you know, swapping out a toilet, changing the tile in the bathroom, you know, you're really not doing anything significantly different to the house.
Yeah.
So you really don't need a permit to do that. And for those projects like that, you know, it keeps the flow going faster, and you're in control of the project a little more. And so, yeah, I mean, I would be very comfortable doing that. And I think that as you, the client, if you ever had any, you know, repercussions in the future, I think the key thing to do is just take pictures during the process.
Yeah.
So if you have pictures of demo
for those, this is for like DIYers too.
Yeah,
that
DIYers
may not even
just
call you a contract. They're just gonna do it.
Anybody
on their own.
just take pictures.
I like that advice.
If you take pictures, then in the future, say, you know, and especially like for real estate, you know, and clients come in and they're going to buy your house, and they're going to realize, okay, this bathroom's been updated, you know, and you'll get like a Karen that's like, well, did I get a permit, and how is it going, and is it going to work? You know, you're going to be like, hey, I got pictures of everything. So if it needs to be, if you're worried about the integrity of the project, like, I have this file, and and I use this contractor, and you can call them up, and I'd be happy to be like, yeah, of course, you know. So I try to take pictures of everything that we do, so that way we have accountability for it as well.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that's kind of just take pictures.
Yeah. So our customers, is that usually a question you're getting right off the bat? Hey, John-Michael, you know, here's the project I'm thinking about. You know, should I get a permit or not? You know, what are your thoughts? I was thinking I might not get one. Yeah, and then you're just walking them through it. And then I guess kind of answering my own question there. Sorry.
Hey, you know, I mean, that's good. I mean, as a client, I want you to answer your own questions, because you don't want it, because, you know, sometimes it's an uncomfortable conversation, because I don't want to be the guy that says don't get a permit. Yeah. But I also will be the guy that says, yes, we should get a permit if we need to do it. You know, I think the thing that really it gets dicey is like basements. When you're talking about adding that square footage and you put an egress window in, do you want to get a permit or not permit for that? And I think that can be one of those things where, you know, if you get a permit and you put an egress window in, you're adding that square footage into your house. And that square footage can then be assessed by the city, and then your taxes can like be reassessed because of that extra space that you're putting into your house. So that can be something like, if you don't want to get a permit for that because you don't want your taxes to go up or something like that, then I think that's like a gray area that people I think that's mostly like the contentious situation. So
I'm just thinking, like, recently, like, a friend just did a basement, you know, it was actually a couple years ago, and they used a contractor, and they just did it on their own, and, you know, they didn't pull permits, everything worked out fine. Right. But what you're talking about, the egress window, you said like that automatically. Tell me.
Yeah, so an egress window creates like a space so that you can, in case of a fire, you can climb out of the window. Okay. And you can, you know, get out of that basement space, and you create like an alternate exit. So instead of just running up the stairs and getting out of the house, you can, if you're trapped, you can go out the window and climb up the well and get out of there. So, but I think according to most codes and in most like states, and real estate people know this too. It's like one of those dicey things where you see a finished basement and and there's a bedroom down there, and you want to say, hey, this is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house,
right?
And but one of the rooms in the basement, then you go to the, look at the way it's assessed in the city, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house because they don't count the stuff underground.
Right.
So if you have an egress window, it's technically should be able to count that space as finished space. So I think that's where that egress window becomes like the gateway into what you can count as your finished space.
When you go to sell.
Yes.
Got it. So
or when they come to assess like your taxes and stuff like that too. So I think that's where like a lot of people get into, disagreements, especially for realtors, because, they see a finished basement, it's lovely, it's got everything you need, but if it doesn't have that egress window, then can you technically count that as finished space?
Visually, you can.
Yeah. I mean, anybody walks down there, they're going to be like, hey, yeah.
There's a bedroom.
There's a bedroom there, my grandkids can sleep down there, or my in-laws can be down there, So, I'm not sure if we answered our questions or not, but I think
it sounds like egress window definitely count. It's going to count the space, and a lot of times, it's going to count towards assessment and raising of taxes.
Yeah,
if you're adding the egress window,
for sure.
Not to mention if like an assessor comes or even just walks on the outside, they'll see the egress window.
Yeah, they'll see it. I mean, and then really all these things kind of boil down to when you're selling your house. Yeah. So if you're going to be in your house for a long time, say you buy your house and you're like, oh, I'm going to be there for like 10, 15 years, if you don't get a permit in the first, you say you renovate your basement right after you buy it, you don't get a permit, like the likelihood of someone asking a lot of questions about that, like 10, 15 years down the line when you go to sell it is pretty minimal. I think a lot of these situations are when people are either trying to do the work to make their house have more value right before they sell it. And then, but I think a lot of stuff is, I think what you'll see with your realtors and with a lot of stuff is like the market is so crazy right now that people are not even having home inspection contingencies.
I know.
So, I mean, if you take that off the table, then, then having a permit isn't really that important because people aren't even worried about the inspection.
Right.
So, it's like
certain areas.
It's like a free-for-all for everybody.
I know.
So, I think that
there's not really a worry as much in the market that we're in right now. If I should pull a permit, I mean, again, I think it's like you said, leave it up to your customer, give them the pros and cons, and let them make the choice.
I think it's all about just who you're working with. Too.
Yeah.
Like you want to be able to, you want to vet your contractors. You want to call up, have them to give you clients that they've worked with. And if they're comfortable with that, if they're uncomfortable with that, that might be like a red flag. Like, oh, well, why do you need to talk to my other clients?
Yeah.
I think like
I think most people would hey, here's some past clients that I've worked with that love me.
Kind of vet your people out and then, see how that's going to work. I mean, like the permit versus non-permit thing, it's got a stigma of like, kind of, sketchiness to it. But at the end of the day, it's really just how you want the project to go and what's going to happen, and as long as you take pictures and you're, thorough with, and you're working with the right people, I always use licensed contractors for plumbing, electrical, all that stuff. So those guys have to do all that stuff because they're liable. They have to do it to code, otherwise they're liable. So the liability kind of keeps everybody in check no matter what you're doing with either permit or not permit.
I guess question for you, like if I were to do something no permit, what would you say? And I don't know if you know or if certain cities have different fines, but like what if it was found out that I didn't pull a permit? I've heard like triple or quadruple whatever the permit cost. Is that a fair assessment or?
I personally have never had to deal with it, but I know that from other experiences that I've heard from other people, you can get a retroactive permit put in place if you can prove to your inspector that you did the work properly.
So that's where the pictures come into play. So I love that advice, especially for the DIYer.
Yeah, the DIYer, if they take the pictures, themselves, just go in there after everybody's left and just snap some pictures and get everything under control. Make a little file, have a little book and say, hey, this is what our renovation was in 2022 or something like that. I think that would probably be like significantly helpful if you had to go in, if you were in the situation where someone found out you didn't get a permit and the city's kind of asking questions. I think that would really just kind of make everything a lot smoother. I think worst case scenario, you're going to have to, you get it. And it all comes down to the inspectors too. So the inspectors, it's really up to them. So if you have like a inspector that's cool and can handle it. All these cool inspectors out there, and I'm sure there's like am I a cool inspector? I don't know, but I'm gonna get in trouble with all the inspectors that watch this one. But I think that would give them enough process. But I mean, but if they want to see what's been done, you're gonna have to open up some walls. If there's tile and you gotta take some tile off to get into the plumbing. There's gonna be some costs that are gonna be involved in that. So I mean, that can be a big deterrent on not doing it for sure. But at the end of the day, you're not gonna have to tear your whole house down and stuff like that. But I think, like I said, it comes back to the pictures. If you can say, hey, this was done this way, that way, then they don't have to open the wall up because they can, timestamp them and stuff like that. So most stuff nowadays is pretty easy to kind of backtrack that kind of stuff. But. Got
it. So to recap, hey, if you want to be safe, get the permits. It might slow things down a little bit, but hey, if it's a another project. Like the bathroom I described for me, hey, maybe just take pictures and get it done without a permit, get it done quicker. But ultimately it comes down to, hey, what do you want to do? It sounds like you're laying out the options for them.
I mean, there's always options, and I mean, there's no better way to do it, permits really don't slow things down that badly as long as like the flow is good. I mean, there's always situations where it's going to go wrong, and so
just know what you're getting into if you decide not to pull the permit.
I think that if you just, I'm happy to guide people through either one of them.
You make the call. I love it. All right, this was all great stuff. Permits or not permits. Sounds like, hey, to be safe, get the permits, but there's some times maybe just forego it.
For sure.
But to be safe, get the permits.
It's always good to be safe.
All right, well, thanks for coming on. We got to have you back on again. I got John-Michael Fleming here from Spinnaker Renovations from Cedarburg. Can you give your credentials one more time?
Spinnaker Renovations. You guys can find me online. I've got a website that's in development right now, but otherwise just give me a call, 414-943-6240. I'll come out there and check it out, and we can get some stuff done.
All right. Thanks for coming on the Snod Pod. This is John Snodgrass, your mortgage resource, where we're talking mortgages, real estate, and beyond. Thanks for tuning in today.